Good evening. My name is Karel Marais, and welcome to Educational Management and Leadership. I will be your lecturer for this module. It is 6 o'clock. I have switched on the recording. I like to start on time. So I'm going to get underway with this first session. This session would be more an introductory session. I'm not going to go into too much work tonight. But I want you to have a sense of where we stand and how the module sticks together, because it's going to make your life a lot easier once you start getting into the work and starting to deal with the actual work. So I'll give an overview of the module. Depending on how much time we have, I might do a bit more and start looking at some of the work itself. You need to understand that these sessions are not classes. This is me giving you guidance, giving you insight, giving you advice. Typically, I would expect when we have a normal class, I would expect you to already have gone through the work and be ready with questions for myself, and that we have a more of a discussion and a facilitation session rather than me teaching you. There isn't in this type of space, there isn't time to teach the work, and especially with this module, this isn't really teaching, this is discussing, this is talking, etc. But let's get on with it. Please feel free to interrupt me, ask me questions, whatever, as we go along. My email address is on the screen. It's kamarais@varsitycollege.co.za. I am a full-time employee at Varsity College. Please feel free to send me an email if you've got any questions at any time. And please, even if you get a response to say I'm on study leave or whatever, I always try to just glance at my emails. Try to make it clear in the title of your email that it's this subject, and then I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If I haven't gotten back to you within 24 hours, please send me another rude email and say to me, Karel, I'm waiting for an answer. What's going on? So I'll try to at least during the week, try to get back to you within 24 hours. So the key outcomes of this module is that we need to look at the legislation that governs higher education, and what the organizational impact is of those pieces of legislation on higher education institutions in South Africa. Please keep in mind, because I know there's always a number of people that come from the basic education field, from primary and secondary schools, that in this module we talk specifically about higher education. Then we need to understand the role that quality assurance systems play in aligning what we do with the legislation. We'll look a little bit at some of the educational modules and strategies that organizations follow. And then lastly, look at efficiency and effectiveness as success factors within the institutions operating within the higher education field in South Africa. And the higher education field, it'll depend on what the class looks like. I'm assuming that we're going to have a dominance of students from private higher education institutions, and private higher education institutions at this stage within legislations is placed in a very interesting position, in that all the legislation basically that we look at was actually written with publics in mind. And so sometimes there's quite an interesting dynamic, and with the minister having shown how private education institutions, or the minister having showed his first hand on how private institutions will start to become universities, it becomes a really interesting space to see how that legislation is going to play out, as privates and publics are so fundamentally different in the way that they approach tertiary education. I'm sorry, if you hear a funny purring sound, I have a little kitten that is attacking me that's unfortunately in the study with me. So if you do hear a purring sound, I do apologize for that. So what the materials are that we're going to look at? The module manual. Many of you will be familiar with the module manuals. This guides you through the course. It basically gives us an outline, learning unit by learning unit, with outcomes. And those outcomes are the critical outcomes that you need to be able to meet. Take those outcomes, turn them into questions, and then you know what you need to be able to do to pass this module successfully during the year. There is no prescribed textbook for this module. The prescribed work that we would use are 10 downloadable documents that include the policy documents, legislation, position papers. And I'm looking at the 10 now, and I'm thinking actually this year, I think it's 9 documents, not 10 documents. I'll stand corrected. I'm not exactly sure. I can't recall now. Somehow I think it's only 9 this year, but in any case. The links are within your module manual for those documents. Do yourself a favor, go ahead and just go download them. I will talk to those documents, or some of those documents, when we talk about the first module. Some of those documents are older documents, the ones in the module manual, and where needed, I will refer you to more recent documents or updated documents or additional documents that you might want to use in addition to the prescribed documents. Then, of course, there's VC Learn. That contains all your module information. There is a load of links there that will help you find more information when you're doing your assignments and all that type of thing. It also guides you through the work. It gives you more details, more things to do. And of course, it gives you exercises. I always encourage students to do the exercises, as many of the exercises as you can manage to do. I haven't looked at the ICE activities yet for this module for this year or for the semester. I may just use some of the exercises, or I may include other exercises as ICE. I will in due course release a list of ICE and what you need to do and by when you need to do it. It's normally only due towards the end of the semester, all of them, but I might ask you to please do some of them as the semester progresses, because sometimes it's easier if you actually have done a certain exercise. It makes it clearer what the work is about or how we should approach certain works, or it gives us something that I would like to discuss with you when I see you in class. Yeah. Okay, assessments. You have 3 assessments, 2 assignments, and a summative exam. As I recall, the exam will also be an assignment type of, it's not a sit down, it's an assignment that you have to do, a summative assignment. But I haven't seen the final brief on that yet. I can tell you that the first assignment I've looked at, as well as the second assignment, and we will have specific preparation sessions for those assignments. I will try to do them 2 to 3 weeks before the assignments are due, and where possible, I will then have an additional pre-assignment submission class to allow you to ask last-minute questions and so on for the before the assignment is due, just in case, because sometimes we have questions when we start looking at the assignment, and sometimes those questions become much different once we actually are doing the assignment. The assignments are typically straightforward. They are very appropriate for the level. They do require quite a bit of thinking, and they do require quite a lot of application. In other words, the assignments are not suited to simply telling one what the legislation says or what the various policy documents say. One would have to take those documents and then apply them specifically to the context of the assignment. I'm just going to pause there for a moment. Well, I'm not going to pause. My cat has decided I need to go to the next slide. Let me just get back there quickly. Any questions at this stage before I go any further? Anybody want to ask something? Anybody unclear about anything before I just make this into one long monologue? Suzanne, go for it.
Thank you, Carl. I just wondered about ice tasks because it currently doesn't look like it's working the same as the other courses. So I just want to make sure I'm not missing something.
Okay. The ice tasks, I haven't laid out the ice tasks yet for this semester. I will in the next week or so lay out the whole semester's ice tasks, and I may at some point ask you to do additional exercises. We must do 4 ice tasks, or I must submit 4 marks. I'll typically give you between 6 and 8 opportunities for ice tasks or for ice marks. It's something that I want everybody to have full ice marks by the end of the semester, and I want to give you enough opportunity to be able to earn those ice marks. But I haven't determined the ice yet for this semester. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move on further in terms of the assessments, and I want to talk about assessments and ethical conduct. It's not something that I normally do at this level. I expect students at this level to be fully aware of the ethical consequences, as many of you will be lecturers yourselves or be involved in tertiary institutions. There's 3 things we need to look at: plagiarism, copying, and ChatGPT. ChatGPT being the elephant in the room at the moment. Plagiarism is simply not properly referenced, not paraphrased, or sources that you've not acknowledged. I am a stickler for referencing. Some people call me a right pain. I carry the badge with honor. At a tertiary level and at a postgraduate level, your referencing should be perfect. If you are not 100% sure how to reference, please get in touch with the guys at the Online Information Center. Some of you might think of it as a library, and have a chat to them and ask them to assist you with the referencing. I highly recommend postgraduate students use a referencing tool, something like Mendeley. I personally prefer Mendeley. If you are going to use an online tool, firstly make sure that you understand how to reference. An online tool can be a terrible thing if you're not sure and not confident in your referencing itself. Copying, and this is one of the reasons why I'm addressing it. The way your course is structured, many of you will have colleagues, friends that have done this course before. I had, I think, about 3 cases last semester of people copying from previous students. You will get caught. You should really be aware of that, and also copying from each other. The issue that we have, if you are working in the same group as I am working, the chances are very likely that you will get reported to the relative academics on your campus or in your institution, as it's a dangerous thing for us to have people that are working, that are marking students' work, but then making themselves guilty of copying. Please, guys, don't fall into that trap. And lastly, ChatGPT. If you don't know what ChatGPT is, it is an artificial intelligence tool that will write essays for you. It will answer questions for you. I have played with it. It's part of my research interest at the moment, looking at how it's working, what we can do with it, and how it can be used to further education. It is an extremely powerful tool. There are already a number of detectors which I will run. Anything that looks vaguely suspicious to me, I will run it through the myriad of detectors that are becoming available. And we also have reserved the right that I might call you and say to you, I want to talk to you about your assignment. Simply to see that if you can talk what has been written in your assignment, It doesn't mean I'm going to ask you, you've got Smith and Jones as an author. Tell me what it says on page 3 of Smith and Jones' article. We won't go to that level, but we may have to talk through your article or through your writing, and I want to see if you could talk the talk the way you've written it. The ChatGPT is very usable if you've got to write an essay, to say to ChatGPT, suggest headings, for example, or suggest issues to discuss. If I've got to talk about constructivism in higher education, suggest 5 headings to discuss. It'll give you a very nice outline. It'll give you nice headings. I've got no problem if you use those type of headings and you use it to help you develop your writing. But note, I'm saying to help you develop your writing. To ask ChatGPT to write your assignment for you would be unethical, because you would be submitting work that's not your own, and you will probably run into problems. Okay, I hope we're clear on that. Moving on. The course outline. Let's talk a little bit about what we're dealing with. There are 3 units in this course. The first unit is the navigation of the landscape of higher education in South Africa. This gives us a nice overview of where we are in higher education. What is it that we looking at when we talk about higher education? We look at the legislation, policies, position papers, etc., and how these things speak to each other, and how these things then frame the way in which we act and the way in which we should be doing things within higher education in South Africa. It also addresses some of the current issues in higher education. It talks to where we're at and where we're going. Higher education in South Africa is poised once again right now at a very interesting place, where we're having all these riots on various campuses, with students pulling one way, government pulling another way, and very much universities stuck in the middle. They underfunded, overworked, and they're not getting the government support they need, and they're under immense pressure from students to allow more students in. And unfortunately, that means automatically the lowering of the educational standards of those institutions, because they simply don't have the wherewithal to support all of those students properly. The second learning unit, we look at management and leadership, specifically in higher education, and we'll look at the old age question between what is management and what is leadership. Are they the same thing? Are they 2 different things? How do these 2 things interact with each other? Are managers leaders? Are leaders managers? We will dabble slightly in what is born, what is made, what can be taught, what is natural, what is trait. And then more deeply, we'll look at what are the leadership and management challenges that are currently being faced. What are the goals that have been set for higher education to achieve, and how do these then play out in the responsibilities of the leadership and management within higher education. Lastly, effectiveness and efficiency will come under the spotlight when we look at quality assurance in higher education. How do we know that what we are doing is delivering the product that we should be delivering in higher education? And I unashamedly talk about a product in higher education, the product being the student. I work for an institution that sells education, and I don't have a problem. I do not subscribe to the idea that selling education means you're lowering the quality of education. As a matter of fact, when you're selling education, you're probably ensuring a higher level of education, or a better quality of education. I'm not saying that institutions who are in the public domain don't give a higher level of education. I myself am a product of the public institutions. And I'm very proud of the level of the education that I've received at various public institutions. I've studied at five different public institutions, but I've got qualifications from 4 public institutions. And that was planned. I specifically tried to study at as many different ones as possible. I'm considering doing a PhD, and when I do the PhD, if I do the PhD, I'm really torn between going to the education institutions where I did my master's in education, as opposed to going to a different public institution to experience another one. And then lastly, we look at underneath or within the effectiveness and efficiency section, we look at quality assurance and how it runs in the international world and what that means to us in South Africa and how we can bring those best practice standards into South Africa. Any questions on the course outline and what we're planning to do this year? Okay, right. I'll take that as I'm being very boring and you're half asleep already. Okay. The approach that I like to take in these courses, I'm trying to remember the lady, she's from Rhodes University, and I can never remember her name, that coined the phrase guide on the side. We talk about, when we're talking about higher education, we talk about when you initially start in your undergrad, and you have a sage on the stage. It's that person standing up there, that lecturer that walks into the first year class, and irrespective of what they say, the students believe them. They're the sage on the stage, they know everything. And that moves on to the guide on the side, which is where you have a person standing on the side and sort of guiding you in a direction. Now, I put guide on the side because that's one of the better known ones, but and that's something that happens late into your undergrad and sometimes into your honors or into your postgrad. But I like to go further than the guide on the side. I like to be the meddler in the middle. In other words, I'm standing in the middle and I'm messing around with you. I'm saying, but you're saying this, what about that? Why not this? To help you develop your thinking and to help you develop your own understanding of specific ideas and so on. I follow a constructivist approach, a true constructivist approach. There's lots of talk around that where people say they are constructivist and they are trying to do constructivist education, and they believe that they truly are doing constructivist education, but that's unfortunately not always the case. There's a lot of constructivism that is actually cognitivism and not constructivist in nature, because there's a direct difference between cognitivism and constructivism. In cognitivism, you are telling students what to learn and how to learn, and you're telling them this is the right answer. Whilst in constructivism, the approach is much more, these are the thinkings that they are, these are the directions, and guiding the students to develop their own thinking and their own understanding. And that's true constructivism. So in that sense, I'm a guide on the side, guiding you towards the information, but I actually prefer to play the role of the meddler in the middle, to mess around. And I'm not saying mess around with your in an ugly way, but to mess you around in terms of the way in which you think, to say, but why aren't you thinking this way? What about that way? So that you can form your own understanding of the work that we deal with and the thinking that goes with that work. I distribute a pacer. Your pacer has already been uploaded. The pacer takes you through the full course. It tells you week by week what you should be doing. I know it's difficult, and I'm going to come to the family commitments and all the rest of it, to stick to the course. But if you just follow my pacer, you do what the pacer asks you to do, you should be fine. You should not have any problems. I believe my pacer's dates and everything are correct in terms of they each full weeks and so on. If you find any errors, please tell me, because it's quite a difficult thing to put the pacer together and leaving enough time for assignments, etc., and feedback sessions and all the rest of it. Yes, follow the pace. And if you follow the pace and you attend the sessions, we'll have a session every second week. Sessions will run anything from half an hour to an hour. I've booked them for an hour and a half because sometimes there's students that want to ask me stuff afterwards or other things that we need to discuss or so on. So I don't just book them for the time duration that I think that will last, but anything from a half an hour to 50 minutes, and sometimes a tad longer, but seldom longer. Then in terms of the approach to family, I was privileged enough to do my first qualification as a full-time student. After that, I did a postgrad qualification and 2 master's degrees, all in distance education. So I am fully versed and I fully understand the difficulties that you as distance students go through. And the one thing that I maintain that you do not need in this process is a family that does not understand or a family that's being neglected and gets upset. So my advice to students in the distance realm of the world is that they sit down with their family and discuss with the family when they're going to study and when they're going to work. It helps you to put structure in your study. It helps you to stick with the pacer, but it also gives your family a good sense of where they fit in. I, for example, I'm an early morning person, so when I'm studying, my wife, and when our daughter was still staying with us, our daughter knew that I would get up early in the morning, so I would get up at 4 in the morning, and I'd work until, on a Saturday, Sunday, I'd work until 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then that'll be my studies for the day. Then it's the family time, and they wouldn't disturb me until I come out of the study, or when we didn't have study over the spare room or wherever, simply because I'd had an arrangement with them. I will be working until that time, and then it's family time, and then I want to sit down and work. Yes, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you have an assignment due on a Monday and stuff like that. But yeah, other friends of mine are night people, so they would sit with the family, and 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening, they'd say, look, excuse me, and then they'd go sit and work until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I can't work like that. The key thing is just arrange it with your family so that you have time to spend with your family, but that you also have time to work on the various pieces of work that you have got to do, such as the assignment. The assignments, as I mentioned briefly earlier, they are, I don't consider them difficult, but they are thinking work, and it is not something that you can rush. It's not something that you can start on a Friday to hand in next week. You should be working on your assignments well in advance, as in 2-3 weeks at least in advance, start working on them, so that you leave yourself enough time that you can read through your assignment and work through your assignment at least once after your assignment is finished. You should finish it and have a good 12 to 24 hours away from the assignment, and then sit down and read through the assignment. And I know this irks some people when I give this advice. Lock yourself into a room and read through the assignment loud. Read it out loud. Psychologically, it makes a difference in how you approach it, and also changes your understanding, because you're seeing, you verbalizing, and you hearing it. And because you're doing all three of those things, you will find that by reading it out loud, you will have a much better understanding, and there's much less likely to make any mistakes in terms of the language errors, or I had a lecturer that used to talk about thinkos. So you make a typo, but at this level you make thinkos. In other words, you make a thinking error rather than a typing error. And when you read it out loud, you'll immediately see the errors in thinking and be able to correct them and be able to make sure that you have a better understanding of what is required. Okay, any questions? Anything you want me to address? Anything I haven't spoken about? Anything else that you want me to? None. Paige, yes, please ask your question. Paige, I'm not hearing you. Have you got your mic on?
That would help. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hi, my registration is taking a while. There's a bit of an issue. So I don't have access to the BC Learn yet, so I don't have the PACER. I think I'll probably be registered early next week. Is that an issue if I'm only getting it then?
It's not a train smash. I don't know if you, I'm not sure when you joined. I will give my email. I'm going to give my email address now as well. Wait, let me do this. In the chat, I'm typing my email address. And if any of you need to get hold of me, so it's KAMARAIS@varsity-college.co.za. It is K.A. Marais, not K. Marais, at varsity-college.co.za. Just help if I hit the enter button. I have put it in the chat. Paige, if by, let's say, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, it still hasn't, your register still hasn't been completed, contact me, please. And then I'll see what I can do from my side. And I'll see, I don't like emailing things to students, as in study materials and so on. And I definitely don't like emailing things to PAS, because it can change, and then I've emailed you the wrong things. Corin, yes, we definitely will be having preparation sessions. If you go look under more resources, you'll find my PACER there. I believe the PACER indicates when we'll have the prep sessions. I know before I think it's the first assignment, we actually have, the official prep session was like 2 nights before it's due. And I've moved that back about 2 weeks so that you have 2 or 3 weeks to be able to work on the assignment. I will as well, I think it's the night before you hand it in, or the day before you hand it in. I will also host a session then. That session will only be for questions. I won't do any work. I'll log on. I'll be there from, say, 6, and I'll give it 15 minutes. If nobody logs on with questions, I'll log off. Or if somebody says to me, Carl, please, I'm only going to make it at 6:30, I'm out for that evening. I will hang around until that time, but I'm not going to do work, and I'm not going to be speaking. I'm just going to be sitting there for last minute questions. But yes, the plan is to do what they call national support sessions. I just call them assignment prep sessions, well in advance. I will also do a session after the assignments, once I've marked them, to give you general feedback. But what I do, I tend to give quite extensive feedback on your assignment itself. So you will have to go back into VC Learn and then download the marked assignment and go through my comments in the marked assignment. I do comments on your writing, and I do comments on your actual work. I do both of those. I feel the work comments are obviously necessary so that you understand what you did right and what you did wrong in terms of the assignment. But the writing comments I do mostly to try to assist you, so that you have understand what is required at this level for writing, because you're going to have to do a research project, and for the research project you need to be able to write at the right level. Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks, Corin. Any other questions? Anything else people want me to discuss now before I talk about the week ahead and what the next things are that's going to happen? Okay, so I'm going to end this session here. It's been not that long, 36 minutes it looks like. What's going to happen in the next day or two, I will put up a, and I've still got to figure out where I'm going to post it. It's very likely that I'll be posting this recording, as well as future recordings, that they will go onto YouTube, and I will give you a YouTube link, my YouTube account number with a link, and you guys can go there and download it. What I want to do is I want to, and I'll do that in the next couple of days, and this is stuff that you can use for the next week, because next week we don't meet. We meet in 2 weeks from now. I want to start off by giving you an overview of the prescribed materials for this section. So we're talking about the Council on Higher Education Quality Enhancement Projects overview. There's things like the DHEAD National Skills List, talk about what the skills list is, the white paper for post-school education, things like the Presidency's Planning, Monitoring and Evaluations Department. The one in your textbooks or in the module guide is the medium-term strategic framework for 2014 to 2019. Yeah, read it if you want to, but I will talk about the 2019-2024 one, for example. And in any case, the link that you've got there, and I'll speak to that as well, what is the basic education link instead of the post-school link. So I'll address all of those issues around the material that you need for this, for the first learning unit, and I will give you an overview of that material. And the reason why I want to do that is because that will already start giving you insight, because what you need to do for the first learning unit is understand how the various policies and white papers speak to each other and how they influence each other. So those recordings will be up in the next couple of days. I'm not going to commit to when exactly they'll be up, but I'm hoping to finish those before the end of the weekend. Okay, anything else last minute before I say thank you and good night? Anything else that you want to ask me or to find out? Oh, no problem. Look, guys, I like it when a lot of people are in class. I enjoy it. I know 6 o'clock is early for many people. Unfortunately, due to other commitments, I can't do it at a different time. The days are also of such a nature that we need to fit in with other classes and etc. So unfortunately, I know there are some of you that are never going to be able to attend my classes. But feel free, if you listen to the recording, watch the recordings and so on, you feel free to drop me an email to ask your questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. And as I said earlier on, if you send me an email and I've not answered you within 24 hours in the week, please send me an email 24 hours later and say, listen, yeah, I'm waiting for an answer. It's not unusual for me. I don't go to the office on a Thursday and a Friday. And it's not unusual for me to walk in on a Monday morning and have 200 emails plus in my inbox. So it's very easy for me to miss a student's email. And then a second email saying, Carl, I emailed you, why are you not answering me? Is to me, from a student, it's 100% acceptable. You answering me because you need a question. You need an answer to your question. I need to answer that question. And if you send the email and I don't respond, I probably missed it. And then you're going to sit and wait, and you might never get a response. So rather send me a really nasty email and say, hey, I'm waiting for your answer, and I will understand. I don't have a problem. I get nasty emails from students on a daily basis, so I will fully understand. But you, my students, so you are entitled to be more nasty than students that are not my students. Okay, guys, if there's nothing else, Nomsa, organizer, thank you. Okay, great. Thank you for joining us, Nomsa. And it's also, yeah, that's a good trick. When you do struggle to get in, it's sometimes easier to log in through your mobile device rather than your laptop. I've done that on a couple of occasions. I have taught from my mobile device. Luckily, it seldom happens, but I have done that. Okay, cool, guys. Yeah, it's a different module because of the way the material works, because there's not a book that we can read or so on, but we'll find our way through it, and it's not as difficult as it would seem it initially. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Look out for my emails, look out for the recordings, and we'll chat again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks, man. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.